Stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. We need to make sure that we're alive and well on YouTube because YouTube always takes a minute. The other platforms, they fire up faster than YouTube, and so we have to just wait a couple minutes, couple seconds. Looks like it's there. It is. Okay, so it looks like it's working, so we can go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got a lot to get into. We're going to start off by going back into Afghanistan because there's a lot of Americans, apparently 143 of them, according to Real Clear Politics, that are still stranded in Afghanistan. Might even call it a hostage situation unless you're somebody in the Biden administration. But we have Antony Blinken. He came out and he's giving us some idea about what's happening here. And so apparently there were 6 or so charter planes that are still stranded on the ground in Afghanistan thanks to the Taliban. And so we need to unravel that whole debacle. Then we're going to check in with the former president, Ashraf Ghani, the same guy who hopped on a plane and got the heck out of there like that. He came out with a statement today and explained why he made the decision that he did. Tells us a little bit more about what was going on in his mindset, and so we're going to see what he had to say. And then in our second segment, we're going to change gears and go revisit what's going on in January 6th, because the FBI came out today and they released new video about the alleged January 6th pipe bomber. Remember, we saw that a lot of the footage, the grainy photographs that looked like they were taken with a potato, were shown to many people in the country, and we were all saying, well, you know, it looks like a person with a hood. We got some more evidence out there today. The new video from the FBI showing us where this guy was walking around, and so we're going to go through the video. It's about 3 minutes. I broke it up into 3 different clips, and so we're going to be able to follow along the narrative and see what is going on there. And then in our final clip, we got to check in and see what the LAPD is doing. That's right, the Los Angeles Police Department, because now they are gathering up everybody's social media information. Even if you're not charged with the crime, if they just say, hey, excuse me, do you have a quick second? I got a question for you. Did you see what happened over here? And you say, oh yeah, I did. That, you know, it's crazy. The whole thing, it all fell apart. And they, when they ask you for your name, they write that down on a card along with your other social media information. And you might not think that's a big deal, but we're going to check in and see what another company called Media Sonar might be doing with that information, creating these mega surveillance dragnets that are going to follow people, innocent people, all over the place. So we've got a lot to get into. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is our community, kind of off YouTube. A lot of great people are over there chatting away. We've got chairman of board over there of the board. We got Vienticus Prime. We've got 3 girlies in the house. We have K-Cell, Jeremy Matrita. What's up, Jeremy? We've got Look 2G, Mustang Jeff, and many others. Over on YouTube, we've got Stace on the case. We have Renee Crane on. We have Donna Budafuco is in the house. I saw somebody from Wisconsin. Shout out to Wisconsin. We've got Renee Crayon says Robert is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Oh, that's not any good. We have Ronnie Cole. We have James Kreth. We have many others. So we're going to make sure that we're doing a live stream and having a live conversation. And so if you want to participate and you're a supporter over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, then you can submit a form right here. It looks just like that, and we'll do our very best to get to the questions. If you can, keep them in order with the segment. That way I can make sure that I can do my best to get to them. All right, and before we jump into it, of course, if you're looking for clips of the show, this is where they go at the Clips channel, Robert Gruler ESQ /Clips. and it'll take you right there. And I'd appreciate a subscribe over there. That's going to help us grow that channel, and then we can monetize that, and then we can sort of, make the channel self-sustaining. So that would be very appreciated if you wouldn't mind heading on over there. If you don't ever watch the clips, well, you don't have to do a thing. It's pretty nice. All right, so let's get into the news of the day. The situation in Afghanistan, if you're a member of the Biden administration, you certainly wouldn't call it a hostage situation, but it's kind of starting to look like a hostage situation. A couple days ago, we talked about this photograph posted on September 5th, saying that newly released photographs from satellites are showing that Americans are stranded on these airplanes you see here outside of the Mazar-i-Sharif airport. And so we're kind of scratching our heads saying, well, why are Americans sitting in chartered airplanes if these planes have been chartered to get them out of the country? U.S. State Department has said they're going to do everything they can possibly do to help make sure Americans get home, but they're stranded there. They've been sitting there. And so a lot of people over the weekend, over the long Labor Day weekend and into this week have been sort of trying to figure this out. Are they being held hostage? Why are those planes not moving? There are hundreds of people that want to get out of the country. Might kind of seem like the Taliban is holding them hostage. It's not letting them leave. And so there was a lot of back and forth about this over the weekend, but planes are still there. Nobody's left. And now some criticism is coming down the pike towards Joe Biden and his administration. Over from Real Clear Politics, we have Susan Crabtree. She's reporting that U.S. lawmakers and veterans are trying to assist in the evacuation of 143 stranded Americans. Posted this article today over at Real Clear Politics. Many Afghan allies are growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of action by the Biden administration, insisting that the Taliban efforts to block flights from leaving the country is not a hostage crisis. It's just they just kind of control the proper documents from those seeking to leave. We've been hearing a lot of this. It's just a paperwork problem. Oh no, we're going to let you all leave, but you're going to the wrong country. You forgot to sign the bottom of your receipt here. Hello, we can't let you leave when you haven't filled out your paperwork properly. So that's what the current administration is doing, trying to frame this as it's just a miscommunication. It's just the Taliban. We're going to get this sorted out, and then we're going to just get things back to normal. Nonprofits have been working to evacuate those left behind after August 31st, after the exit of all U.S. troops. Those aircraft have remained on the ground as first State Department officials put up roadblocks, and then as the Taliban issued demands, according to sources. Those organizing and funding efforts include the Nazarene Fund, right? I think that was a Glenn Beck organization, and many others, including women's leadership organizations, trying to get people out of the country. And so, yes, we know that yesterday we talked and heard from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and recall that what has happened here with this current administration and the Afghan debacle, it went from a military operation and transitioned into the State Department operation. And we saw this happening kind of in slow motion. We saw this when they were bringing up the deadlines. Well, what happens after August 31st? Joe Biden's out there saying, we're going to get everybody we can. If you want to come home, you can come home. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you want to leave Afghanistan, you're going to leave Afghanistan. And that's been Joe Biden's promise. But then when you ask the Department of Defense, when you asked Lloyd Austin about this, when you asked the Pentagon spokesperson, John Kirby, about this, their response was always something very similar. Well, we're going to work hard until the very last minute, until the end of the clock, until the time runs out. Then, well, we're out of time, because that's when the end of the treaty was, and that's when the U.S. had to be out of there. And the Taliban was not extending anything. And they have tons of hostages in their grips now. So that was the entire lead up. That was the military operation component. It switched over then after August 31st into a State Department operation now. And so we're not hearing from any military people. Military's done. Now this is a diplomatic operation. Now this is Secretary of State Antony Blinken. And we haven't really been getting much good data out of this gentleman or this administration. He was telling us, some odds and ends numbers. Like yesterday, he said, well, there are some Americans there, but it's a relatively small number. It doesn't really matter. It might be a dozen, half dozen, not even worth messing around with. And by the way, they're not even our Americans, just like the dogs. We kind of, they're not ours. We didn't know about them. And so several of us, level-headed Americans, I'd say, have been asking how many Americans are out there. According to Susan Crabtree, 143 of them. It's not relatively small numbers of Americans, or, whatever he was saying, maybe dozens. Here is Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is going to be giving us some indication about what's happening here. Today was the first day that he came out and said, okay, you're right. The Taliban's not letting anybody leave. You got me on that one. So now I guess I better explain myself. Here he is.
The United States will continue to provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. We're gratified to have a partner in Congress when it comes to that commitment. Let me also say a bit more about freedom of movement, particularly the issue of charter flights.
Yes, tell us.
I spoke about this in Doha yesterday as well. As I think all of you know, a number of groups and individuals determined to help are working to organize charter flights out of Afghanistan, including from Mazar-e-Sharif for people who wish to depart. We're grateful for those efforts. There's been a fair amount of confusion surrounding the flights, and let me just clarify a few things. As of now, the Taliban are not permitting the charter flights to depart.
There it is.
They claim that some of the passengers do not have the required documentation. While there are limits to what we can do without personnel on the ground, without an airport, with normal security and procedures in place, we are working to do everything in our power to support those flights and to get them off the ground. That's what we've done. That's what we will continue to do. Specifically, we're working with NGOs, with advocates, with lawmakers around the clock to help coordinate their efforts and offer guidance where we can. We're helping to arrange landing rights and liaise with other countries in the region in the question of overflight. We've made clear to all parties, we've made clear to the Taliban that these charters need to be able to depart, and we continue every day, virtually every hour, to work on that.
Or what? All right, so he's going to communicate to the Taliban. We're communicating to them, these planes need to leave or else nothing's going to happen to you, so do whatever you want. Because there's nothing they can do. What leverage do they have? It's sort of the Taliban's ball. They can run it however they see fit. So he talks about this, they need to leave. We're going to continue to work on that, whatever that means. And what's the solution? What's the resolution here? He's going to work with NGOs. They're going to work with landing rights. They're going to work with other countries to make sure that the planes can land safely. The problem is they can't get out of the airport. Hello, the Taliban's not letting them take off the tarmac. So it doesn't matter. It's not a problem of not having a landing zone. It's they can't even leave the airport because the Taliban is not allowing them to do so. Also mentions we don't have an airport anymore. We don't have a ground force. Not much we can do about that. Of course not. That was all your administration, your team's doing. You caused the whole situation. You caused all of this to result, and that's why you're sort of stuck without any good options because you botched the whole thing. But he did say to us that he's going to communicate to the Taliban that this needs to happen. These planes have to go. Get it done. We're working hard on this. So who is he talking to? Which people of the Taliban are over there negotiating with the new Biden administration? Well, it's an all-male Afghan government of old guard members. So it's not the diversity Olympics like the State Department wanted. Ned Price over there at the State Department is probably very upset about this, as well as that other woman who I think, and we're not going to leave it at that, but this is what the Taliban organization came up with. On Tuesday, they announced an all-male interim government for Afghanistan stacked with veterans of their hardline rules from the 1990s and the 20-year battle against U.S.-led coalitions. A move that seems unlikely to win international support the new leaders desperately need to avoid an economic meltdown. This is from the AP. Remember all that talk from the Biden administration? Well, no, Jen Psaki. Well, if they want to be respected on the world stage, then they're going to have to get their act together. Jake Sullivan, we have substantial leverage over the Taliban. Wouldn't tell us anything about what that leverage was, because given the fact that they might have dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans, or at least American interested people over there. What was the leverage? Is it economics? Well, they don't care about that. They're bringing back all of the hardliners from the 90s, and after the 20-year battle of the U.S. versus the Taliban, they're bringing all of the enemies right back into control of the government. And it's all male, too. Not even any females out there, which is offensive, actually. I'm offended. Appointed to a key post of the Interior Minister was Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is on the FBI's most wanted list with a $5 million bounty on his head. So he's the Interior Minister now. He's still believed to be holding at least one American hostage, so that's good. Headed the feared Haqqani network that is blamed for many deadly attacks and kidnapping. So that guy is now the interior minister of the Taliban. Announcement came hours after the Taliban fired their guns into the airs. After they wanted to disperse protesters, they arrested several journalists. Second time in a week that they use these heavy-handed tactics. Drawn mostly from Afghanistan's dominant Pashtun ethnic group, the cabinet's lack of representation, racists, also seems certain to hobble its support from abroad. Oh, okay, well, I guess that didn't last long, did it? The big push to get the Taliban on the international stage to bring them up to par so that they could interface diplomatically with the U.S. government, so that the U.S. government and the Taliban could share tips on making sure they form a very diverse, very inclusive, very friendly, safe spaces for all future negotiations. I guess that's not going to work out too well. It's a bunch of dudes over there. It's a bunch of males. That's just chauvinistic. And they're not even taking people from different ethnic groups. I mean, this is just outright racism. I'm offended. I'm sure the State Department, they're probably just, oh my goodness, they're probably writing a bunch of letters right now, just typing away. Oh, this is disrespectful. The international community is not going to appreciate this, and you better change your attitude. Okay, so we're going to see what comes out of Ned Price over there. Now, Representative Austin Scott is giving us some more indication here. Says 4 of the 5 Taliban 5 Gitmo detainees that were all swapped for Bergdahl were given leadership positions. So they were all held in Gitmo. 4 of the Taliban 5. We've got Minister for Info and Culture, Mullah Karola Karika. We have Minister of Borders and Tribal Affairs, Mullah Nourullah Nouri. We have Defense Minister Mohammed Fazl, easier name. Director of Intel, Abdul Haq Wasik. All right, so we've got that going. All of America's former prisoners and bounties, $5 million wanted list, has American hostages, still probably responsible for, hundreds, if not thousands of American deaths, through different tentacles of influence. They're running things now. So that's what the Biden administration reinstalled there. And what leverage do they have? Well, we don't know. Here is Antony Blinken. He's upset. He's going to acknowledge. He's pretty reserved for somebody who's receiving the news that the Taliban is not being that inclusive. He takes it pretty well. Here's what he has to say about it.
Second, with regard to the composition of this government or interim government, I noted the fact that it certainly does not meet the test of inclusivity, and it includes people who have very challenging track records.
All right, very challenging track records. So that's to put it mildly. The leader of the Haqqani network, somebody who still has an American hostage, people that the U.S. government had actual live multi-million-dollar bounties on. Yeah, troubled records, no doubt about that. So how did this all fall apart so quickly? Well, the Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani is going to tell us from his perspective what's going on. He said, "This is my statement." September 8th, 2021. He posted this on Twitter, which I guess is good news. I'm not sure if his citizens are all on Twitter, but he doesn't have a government anymore, so I guess that's the only place he can put it. Who is this guy? This is the president, according to his Twitter bio. I guess he's still the president of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. So might want to update that. That is no longer a thing, as far as I know. I think it's now the Taliban dictatorship of Afghanistan, I think is what it is. He says these are personal tweets, and if you look at his photograph, I noticed this today. So when you open a photograph, what Twitter does is they crop it, they mask it, so it turns it from a square into a circle. And I just pulled out the square, and it's him. He's literally walking out the door, leaving his troops behind. Like, that's his Twitter profile. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. It seems mildly inappropriate given what just happened in that country, but what can you do about it? Here is a little bit more about the guy. If you didn't learn much about him over the last 20 years, I surprisingly didn't know much about him. Born in Logar province, went to the United States in the 1960s, completed his bachelor degree at the university in Beirut. Professor anthology, went back to Afghanistan in 2002 after the collapse of the Taliban government. Served in the finance minister during a prior government, Hamid Karzai's government. UN, he gave a TED Talk discussed how to rebuild Afghanistan. In 2013, ranked 50th in an online poll by the world's top 100 intellectuals. Oh, God. That means, he's an idiot. And he's the second in similar poll run by Prospect Magazine, also the co-founder for the Institute of State Effectiveness. So that's good. I wonder how that's working out. It's an American organization set up. Independent politician, ideologically liberal, came forth during the 2009 presidential election, ran again in 2014, securing less votes than his rival, Abdullah in the first round, but got a majority in the second round. Then there was political chaos, so U.S. intervened, and they formed a unity government, installed him again all the way up in 2019, 2020. Sworn in president again all the way on March 2020. Then the Taliban took over and he flew out of there. During his escape, the Afghanistan embassy asked Interpol to apprehend him for embezzling public funds. He was legally succeeded by Amrullah Saleh, and then the rest of that is history. He went to the United Arab Emirates, which granted him asylum, and he just flew right out of there. So this guy, of course, was in charge for a long period of time. He was sort of the U.S. government's chosen person to go run that show, and he posted a statement today, and he left like that. As soon as the Taliban was like, excuse us, they didn't even knock on the door. They're like, I think we want to come say hello. Gone, out of there, honey. Get the kids, pack the bags. We're out of here. And candidly, right? If you're a person in his position, you'd like to think that you might stay there and that you might go down with the ship. I mean, that's what the captain of the ship is supposed to do, right? It'd be like George Washington taking the first plane back to France. I'm out of here. Good luck, colonists. I'm out of here. Send a postcard. But I can't participate in any of this. And so this guy just bailed out of there. And let's see what he has to say. Now, my point was, you might be somebody who said, well, I would stay and I'd go down with the ship and I'd fight to the very end and all of that stuff. But, it's really hard to say if you're in a position like that. Are you going to, do you want to be the person who lays down your life for the rest of the military that also is not willing to lay down theirs? I mean, it sounded like the whole country was just willing and waiting for the Taliban to take back over. It was just a matter of time. So why are you fighting for, why would you stand and stay and fight for something that was a dead cause from the very beginning, right? Sounds like maybe this guy knew that this whole thing was built on a bed of sticks and it was all going to become crumbling down at some point, and it did. And so what was he going to do? Stay there and go down with the ship and get flogged to death by the Taliban? Or he just goes, oh, well, time's up, I guess. The grift is over. The 20-year funneling of money to whomever, that's kind of over. Got my fill, had my meal at the buffet, and now I'm out of here. Here's what he said on September 8th. I owe the Afghan people an explanation. Yeah, you're not kidding me. For unexpectedly leaving the city. I left at the urging of palace security. Oh, they advised me to remain, risk setting off horrific street-to-street fighting that the city had suffered previously back in the 1990s. Leaving Kabul was the most difficult decision of my life. I believed it was the only way to keep the guns silent. Save Kabul under 6 million citizens. I've devoted 20 years of my life to helping Afghan and work towards a democratic, prosperous, and sovereign state. Never my intent to abandon the people or that vision, but you did. Now it is not the moment for a long assessment of the events leading up to my departure. Yeah, of course it is. He doesn't want to talk about it. I will address them in detail in the near future. Okay, but now I must address the baseless allegations that after I left Kabul, I took with me millions of dollars belonging to the Afghan people. These charges are completely false. Corruption as a plague has crippled our country. I inherited a monster that could not easily or quickly be defeated. Says my wife and I, we've been scrupulous in our personal finances. I publicly declared all my assets. Wife's inheritance has been disclosed. I welcome an official audit or a financial investigation under UN auspices. My close aides are ready to submit their finances as well, along with my political figures. Throughout my life, I firmly believe that the formula of a democratic republic was the only way forward in Afghanistan. Throughout my service, my actions have always been defined and guided by the Constitution of Afghanistan, provides platforms for dialogue, defines a future that can be embraced. I offer my profound appreciation and respect for the sacrifice of all Afghans. It's deep and profound regret that this chapter ended in a similar tragedy to my predecessors. So without ensuring stability and prosperity, I apologize to the Afghan people. I could not make it end differently. My commitment to the Afghan people has never wavered, will guide me for the rest of my life. Yeah, okay, so that's good. He's going to live a long, nice life. Posted up at the UAE. Probably got, millions of dollars of collaterals, spread all over the world. Who knows what's going on with that. But I'm sure he's going to be just fine. Not to talk about or worry too much about all the other people that are left in Afghanistan. Not his problem, but they are America's problem. Those are American citizens, and obviously they should be rescued and recovered. So he doesn't want to talk about it, obviously. Certainly not characterizing it as a tremendous success. I didn't see anything in here about this being historic and something that was to be revered and studied in the history books for all time to come. Something that was never before done by a modern nation in modern history. Wow. He says it was a tragedy. Well, similar tragedy. Yeah. No stability, no prosperity. So a little bit of a different framing there between the Biden administration and the former Afghanistan government. All right, so he walked out on his country, walked out on his troops. Somebody else kind of did something similar to that, and he kind of got some grief for that when he was visiting different parts to survey the destruction of Hurricane Ida. Listen in on this one.
Died in 2011 Afghanistan for what? This guy to pull this shit. Leave them in ruins and leave Americans behind. Shit. Leave Americans behind. That's fucking crazy. He would leave you behind. You guys protected him. He'd leave you guys behind. That's crazy. Leave no American behind. Ronald Wiltrick buried in Arlington, 2011, December 11th. For what? He lost his life for what?
All right. So President Biden out there surveying the damage, getting heckled by people out on the streets. What are you doing here? They said. It's a big, long clip, about a 2-minute clip in the first part of the clip there. What are you doing here? Taking photographs? What are you doing? Somebody else says, hey, officers, he's going to leave you behind. He's going to forget you. He's going to leave you behind. He left our Americans behind. We had somebody who died December 2011. He's dead. What'd he die for? For what? So we have some similarities there. What do you have to say about Afghanistan? Let's take a look over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and check in on the chat. See what we've got coming in here. First one is in from TOS Forever. Says, is anyone else concerned that these hostages are part of a 9/11-21 global repeat? Biden wanted a 9/11 celebration. I pray for our global safety 3 days away. Yeah, there's a lot of warnings flying around all over the place about, bracing for terrorist attacks and things like that. So certainly be careful. We have Mustang Jeff says working hard and getting it done are two different things. Unfortunately, I doubt that the Biden administration will get our people out. Is this going to be another Iran hostage crisis? I don't know, Mustang Jeff. Certainly, they're going to do everything humanly possible to not use the H word, that hostage word. Very dangerous. So it's just confusion. It's just miscommunication. The Taliban, as soon as they get all this worked out, yeah, they're just going to send people through. Sergeant Bob says, do everything in our power, quote. What power? U.S. State Department has no power. End of story. Now, they look entirely emasculated. What do they have? They've confirmed multiple times that there's not going to be any essentially military force going back in to, rescue any Americans. Joe Biden came out there and gave that stern talking to about, going and exacting revenge on the people who killed 13 American service members. What did that turn into? A couple drone bombs dropped on a family. So it didn't work out real well. Taliban and everybody over there knows the whole thing is it's ineffective, not going to do anything. All bark, no bite from this administration. Jeremy Matrita says, wait, what happened? I think I skipped that one. Let's go back. Jeremy Matrita says, Rob, just curious how recent were the satellite photos taken and who took them? I'm not questioning your research, and if I put you on the spot, skip my question, always love the show. So it was on September 5th, and the person who posted it was a journalist from somewhere. I don't know what it was, but if you download my slides, Jeremy, or you go back on that, you'll be able to go and click the person's name, and you'll be able to find out exactly who he is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he posted that back on September 5th, and it was his data. So I'm not sure where it came from, but you should always question your sources. No question. We have Kincaid says, good evening, Rob. I would like your thoughts on the following. Affording legitimacy to terrorist group could reduce acts of violence. However, given the politics, splinter cells, a neighboring nation, Iran, isn't the risk too high affording legitimacy to a terrorist group could reduce acts of violence. Isn't the risk too high, though? Okay, so I see what you're saying. So I think the framing here is the question is really surrounding, if you legitimize the Taliban, you bring them up to the table and you say they're on equal footing, they're United States partners. We're going to have conversations with them and negotiate about foreign affairs together, peacefully. They're at the same table, which is what the Taliban is going to be demanding, right? If you do that, then are you essentially legitimizing all of the other terrorist organization, the splinter cells, the Iran extremists, anybody else who is out there now goes, oh, I see how you get a seat at America's table. You just beat them in a war. You just go make them respect you. You just go make them hurt in a way that opens the door to legitimacy. The Taliban did it. They got leverage over America, and now they have a seat at the table. So yeah, I think, Kincaid, I think there are some unintended consequences there that are of proper concern to be thinking about. Monster One says, LMAO, wasn't it just yesterday that they said that it was a lie that the Taliban was holding planes? How do people think these guys have any credibility left? I don't know. You got me, Monster One. I have no idea. I don't know how anybody even listens to them anymore. I mean, the only reason we listen to them on the show is because they're the only people who have any data that are talking. But why they're still in charge is shocking. The Afghan cabinet is a sausage fest. It's just a bunch of bros in there. Ugh. Weird. A little weird. We have Nadarb in the house says, what makes me question the hostage narrative, other than my normal distrust of the media, is why? Why would the Taliban want to hold our people? What do they get out of it? I mean, they technically just, quote, won the 20-year war with us. They got our military out of their country. So why would they risk all of that success and progress just to harm U.S. people, knowing our military officials are just itching to come bomb them? It doesn't pass the test. It's going to be a no from me, dog. That's from the Randy Jackson voice. I think that was American Idol or something like that. That's Nadarb in the house. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, Nadarb. The way that I've always thought about it is, if the Taliban keeps certain Americans as cards they can play, right? If they make it difficult, remember, Americans are going to be leverage for them, right? We're going to see just this slow trickle of, more bad photographs. They're already coming out on Twitter. I'm not going to ever play them here because I can't, because YouTube won't, let me show that stuff because it's bad, right? A lot of problematic things are happening over there. And if America starts to continue to see that, and the Taliban knows that they have the leverage because they ultimately have the hostages, they know that the U.S. is not willing to go back in there and re-engage in a ground conflict or engage in any, extended conflict in Afghanistan. They're not going to do that. Taliban knows that, and so they have incentives to put speed bumps in the departure of Americans, because the longer Americans are there, the more negotiating leverage they have. They say, hey, U.S. government, we need $50 billion. If there are no Americans there, what leverage do they have? The U.S. government says, we're not going to give you that. What are you, nuts? What are you going to give us for that? $50 billion, nothing. They said, well, we've got 100 Americans here who want to come home. What do you think about that? Certainly. Here's the check. Give me the checkbook. Joe Biden, go wake Joe Biden up here. Put the pen in his hand, make him sign this thing. And I think that's all there is to it. It's about leverage. We have Thunder 7 says, the only good to come out of this Afghan disaster is that the people are seeing the true colors of the Marxist Biden regime. 53% of Americans in a poll blame Biden directly for that suicide attack. Fake news can't cover up for him since he hid in a basement in 2020, but they can't stop the hate that is pouring on the Biden administration. I saw the polls. It's like a bloodbath, and it's well-deserved. We have John Halgren, not Josh. Blinken is Leslie Nielsen. Nothing to see here. Country explodes behind him. Yeah, what is that, from Naked Gun? Oh, no, nothing's going on back here. Meanwhile, the entire country is up in flames right behind him. Move along. Nothing to see here, folks. Just keep moving along. John, definitely not Josh Halgren. Good to see you, John. Thanks for being here. We have another one. Former LEO says, how about we send the Taliban an ultimatum? If any of the hostages, are injured or not released, the USA will rain hell on every U.S. military vehicle that was left behind, no matter what the location. They're on the ground in Afghanistan. They should expect a hellfire right up their rear end, and if appropriate, carpet bombing. All of those vehicles are now useless to the Taliban. Very, very, very strong approach there, former LEO. Not taking any hostages. The Taliban is, former LEO is not. I appreciate it. We have another one from Sergeant Bob says, regarding the Taliban in the USA, don't bother trying to teach a pig how to sing. It will only frustrate you and annoy the pig. It's a good one. Thanks from Sergeant Bob. We have some others here. Let's see what else. Come on, Google. Come on, load. Look at this. Look at this. It's taking its time. There it goes. All right, let's see what we've got here. We have Dog Whistle says Carter will live long enough to see someone replace him as the worst president. Yeah, we're right on par for that one. Looking like it's might not even be close. We have somebody says a screw Biden. Well, that's aggressive. Says LOL Blinken lecturing the Taliban for not having a diverse government. Is he smoking crack with Hunter? Remember the video of the Taliban leaders laughing about a Vice reporter asking about women in the government? Maybe Biden and Blinken should send Kamala Harris to lecture the Taliban about diversity. Yeah, that'll be a fun conference when they go over there to talk about diversity, inclusion, pronouns. I'm waiting to know what the Taliban's pronouns are. You know, I mean, we can't offend them. They're our partners now. They're our international partners. We have Kamala Harris's rack says I should go to Afghanistan to lecture the Taliban to have a diverse government. We got Kamala's just getting it today. Taliban Finance Committee says, we are rethinking this hostage situation. These fat Americans are eating all our food. We had to sell all the weapons we collected just to feed them. Hashtag thanks, Biden. Yeah, well, look, you know, they're giving them all of our equipment. Why don't they ship over some, Big Macs as well, just to make sure we're good? We have Air India Communications sent. I can't say that one. Air India. Robute says, "Hey Rob, do you think that Blinken and the other Democrats believe their own BS, or is it all a grift?" I don't know yet. I think it's a grift. I think they know, right? These people are. It's hard to tell. Ordinarily, I would say it's a grift, right? They're politicians. They're all grifters. That's what it's all about, right? It's all about their personal persona. Some of them, I think, do believe in some of the cause, and they're maybe good people. Maybe, I don't know. Probably not. But a lot of them, self-aggrandizing egomaniacs, sociopaths that are out there to sell books and deliver talking points. Essentially, for whatever the party establishment is. They're all part of a team, essentially. The people that kind of, step out from the team, they get nudged right back into the team. And so it's hard to tell if it's a grift, but there are some people in this administration that the only other way that you can sort of explain away the incompetence other than, deliberate, an intentional withdrawal that looked like this. Many people were speculating that the Afghanistan withdrawal was intentional. I mean, how could it be botched so badly if it wasn't just intentional? And so I think the corollary there is that these people really do believe their own BS. I mean, they really do believe like the Taliban is going to form an inclusive government. Like this is going to be a new regime that is suddenly going to be mixing and mingling with the United Nations, talking about global warming and proper pronouns and gender transition surgeries and who goes into what locker rooms. Like, I think they might have thought that was going to happen. If they did think that, that would explain away the incompetence. Otherwise, it's just a grift, right? It's just Jen Psaki coming out there going, I have to come out here and do this garbage job, just shoveling this dog doo-doo every day because she knows, right? On the other end of that, she's got the rest of her life is set. I'm going to write a bunch of books. You become a commentator on CNN. She'll, go on The View and do all of these circuits, and she'll work as a lobbyist, or she'll go into some other administration in some other role. So it's it. You got to go out there, shovel the garbage. It's just part of the job. It's all political nonsense. And then when you're done, you can reap your rewards. I think that's really what it comes to. So some of it is grift. Some of it is believing their own BS. Otherwise, how can you explain away the catastrophe? I think it's because they believe their own BS. They believed it too much. Miss Danny says, what about the different arguments between what is being done between China and Pakistan? Isn't America aware of all of this? Yeah, I think I saw a tweet that said that the Taliban was announcing the formation of their new government, and who were they inviting? Well, it was all the other dictatorships, all of the other totalitarian type of governments out there, right? Russia, China, and some of the other more nefarious entities. So I think that's what's going on. I'm sure the U.S. is aware of this. Many people are also speculating that this was sort of we're going to give this piece of the chessboard over to the Chinese. We're just, Afghanistan's not ours anymore. The Chinese want that. They have the Belt and Road Initiative. They have all sorts of global projects in place. They wanted that geography. That's why we just gave it up and gave it over to them. I don't know about that. We have another one. Team America World Police says, what do you expect? We're just puppets. It's just the politicians. That's it. Just dancing around like morons. Let's see what else we have. Soul Viking says, the most important paperwork I am missing, I am sure, is legal currency. Price goes up as the clock ticks away. That's from Soul Viking. We have Monster One says, to answer the question as to why the Taliban would want hostages, the Taliban holds all the cards now. If the United States tried to invade again, those hostages get killed. The United States would be responsible. The Taliban knows this. Just because they live in the desert doesn't mean they are stupid. That's from Monster One. Yeah, it's leverage. It's negotiating. And they have very good leverage because Americans don't want to see that. We have Monster One says, I think I forgot to put my name on the last one. That was from Monster One. Don't know what question that was. Sure, it was amazing, though. Sergeant Bob says, no Carter fan, but at least he had a soul. That's from Sergeant Bob, right? So I think that supports the trajectory of the current administration. Down. Worse than Carter. We have another one. Monster One says, they have made it very clear that they think Republicans and right wing are a greater threat than the Taliban. Military is coming here for their next war. We've covered that a lot here on this channel. The idea that domestic terrorists and the white supremacists and all of these different militia groups that apparently they know all about but couldn't prepare to protect the Capitol building from, those people, they're warning us again. Okay, so you can take that as far as you can throw it. Let's see, we had a super chat coming in here from Kareem165. Appreciate that, Kareem. Says, I knew Joe was terrible, but this is a total disaster. Yeah, that's true. And I saw another one from Stephen Farrington up at the very start of the show that looks like it didn't make it into our channel. That was just giving us a shout out there. Shout out back at you, Stephen Farrington. Thanks for being here and being part of the show. And that, my friends, are the questions on that segment. Thank you for all of the support over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away over there. Vientikiss Mustang, Radices in the house, Miss Danny. Over on YouTube, we've got Curtis Bartle, Einie BIS. We have No, You Won't Get None. We have Gary Carlisle and many others chatting away over there. Thank you for all of your support. All right, so we're going to jump into the next segment. Keep this train on the tracks over here. The FBI. We've been asking for a lot of January 6th Capitol Hill riot footage, and they gave us some today, but not all of it. There's still something like tens of thousands of hours that are still floating around that we've been trying to get our hands on for all of the various Capitol Hill defendants that are still working their way through the justice system, but we'll set that aside for another day. Today, the FBI came out and they released new video and additional information regarding the pipe bomb investigation. It says that the FBI Washington field office gave us new info coming out of January 2021, and they're looking for additional tips from the public. They want your help, America. Identifying the perpetrator of this attempted attack remains a priority. And we've been kind of critical of the FBI. A lot of what their work has seemed to have been over the last 9 months now has been playing Where's Waldo, finding the little guy in this red and white striped clothes all over the Capitol building. Oh, there's Waldo. Oh, there's another Waldo. And then charging them, the little grandmas walking around the Capitol building with all different types of violations. We've seen many of these have basically boiled down into disorderly conduct and criminal trespass. We know that the U.S. Attorney's Office has been asking for continuances. Apparently, just about a month or two ago, they started actually organizing all the video footage, all those thousands of hours, while many Capitol Hill defendants were rotting away in custody because D.C. judges wouldn't let them out. The government that's supposed to be preparing the case, that has all of the evidence, that's supposed to be disclosing it to the defense so they can prepare their defenses, weren't really doing that. What they were doing is saying, well, we have so much data to organize. We got so much of this stuff. It's so cumbersome. And we're only the FBI. We're only the U.S. Attorney's Office. I mean, we're only the federal government of the United States. We only have so many resources, Judge, and so we need more time. And so the D.C. judges said, oh, take all the time in the world, whatever you need, government, because we know that you're on the side of justice in this case, even though we haven't heard any of the evidence. So that's been going on for a long time. All of that data about the random grandmothers, Owen Schroyer, who was standing on the Capitol steps, he's apparently a mad insurrectionist now. The list goes on and on and on. But now they gave us some information about somebody who maybe was doing something actually problematic if you believe whatever the FBI is telling you, right? A lot of people have a lot of questions about this investigation, myself included. So when we start to read things like this, I'm always taking it with a grain of salt. I'm a criminal defense lawyer as a professional, right? That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. I was going to say by training, that's actually what we do. We have a whole law firm here. And so whenever I see government documents, I go, okay, whatever you say there, FBI, I'll believe it when I see it. But the point here, right, is these are the types of efforts that the FBI, it makes sense for them to go after and utilize their resources for. That they don't have to go and investigate every single person who is standing in the vicinity of the Capitol with, 37 different obstruction charges. That's insane. And they don't need 14,000 hours to go prosecute those cases. And they certainly don't need to keep those defendants behind bars and in custody when they pose no actual threat. Many of them have no criminal history whatsoever. So yes, how about more of this, FBI? Less of prosecuting grandma and having all of your special agents playing Where's Waldo on their computers all day. We can be a little bit more productive than that. This might be a good place to start. The new information includes a virtual map that highlights the route the suspects walked while placing the 2 bombs. This took place, remember, before January 6th, on January 5th, between 7:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. at night, the night before the riots. One device placed back behind the RNC, the Republican National Committee headquarters, and another one behind the DNC, which, both those places are garbage, but we certainly don't want them blown up. New video footage released today shows the pipe bomb suspect sitting on a bench near the DNC in an area where the suspect later placed the bomb. From this vantage point, a full front view of the suspect can be observed. You see that, folks? We're going to get a full frontal here from the alleged January 6th pipe bomber, and that's going to be really exciting. Brace yourselves for the full frontal. Let's take a look now at the quick map so we can get our bearings straight. Quick note here, but the video is going to zoom in, but I want to just point out sort of where this is at, right? This is the U.S. Capitol building. You can see that here. We have the DNC is located here. The RNC is located over here. The pipe bomb for the DNC was located at that sort of this side of the building. RNC was posted over here in the sort of the northwest corner. A lot of other stuff in this area. Air and Space Museum, the Capitol building's over here. Library of Congress is over here. If I'm not mistaken, you have the Supreme Court, which is just one building north of that. To the left down here, you have all of, the Washington Monument goes down that way. The White House is down that way. And so all this is taking place right near the Capitol building. This is all surrounding the Capitol. And so the bombs were right here at the RNC and the DNC. And the FBI gave us a lot of information about this. Let's take a look at what they've cobbled together. We have video downloads. The video is also on YouTube if you want to watch the full uncut thing. We have different resources, so they have different videos. And they're going to give us multiple different angles. So videos from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different angles, different various footage of the suspects. And so in the video, it's about 3 minutes. I have it clipped into about 3 different segments. And so in the first segment, we're going to take a look. And this is where the suspect comes into the scene. So it picks him up on surveillance footage. And, of course, the questions are, well, what happened before that? Where did you capture him? Let's start here. And if we go around this map, you're going to see the red bullet point starts right here. This is where this gentleman is going to start. Let's play it. There's no audio on this, so we'll sort of talk through it. It's going to zoom in. He's going to go up New Jersey Street. And we're going to see him just walking down. You can see him walking right there on your screen, going this direction. And he's got a hoodie, somebody's surveillance footage, right? That's coming from somebody's porch. So that's private residence photograph. Then he makes his way around to the DNC. This looks like it might be a street camera, or this might be somebody else's, Nest camera or something on somebody's property. So you can see the suspect over here on the left side. Let me switch my laser pointer over here. You can see that a little bit better. Now he's walking towards the right side of the screen, and he's going to pause again. This is where you're going to get the full frontal, folks. He's going to turn around. We're going to get a full frontal here. Now, you're going to notice, right, this is taking place in January 5th, and so it's cold out. He's got gloves on. He's fully covered. He's got his mask on. He's adjusting his mask. Looks like he might have glasses on as well. We can't really see that, but he's kind of just hanging out. Guy's walking his dog, also has his mask on so that he's not spreading COVID. Everybody's freaked out about COVID. Remember, it's January 21. And so now he's kind of just playing around, puts something on his face. I think those might have been glasses, picks up the bag, and then goes over to the DNC. Now that video clipped out right there. And so we saw sort of 2 stops, 2 videos, one from a person's phone, from a person's property. looking through their front porch. So he walks by that street, goes over to the DNC, and then stops and sort of takes a pause break. So we're going to go into the next segment, and we're going to see him. This is where it picks up back over from the DNC. He's going to do a bunch of kind of loop-de-loops around the DNC building before he drops the bomb off, and then we're gonna jump over to the RNC. So here that is. So he does a little loop, kind of makes it seem like he might be. This is where the bomb gets dropped off. So we have a big. We have some waiting time here. So he's going to sit here, just kind of hanging out. We have one of those scooters. And you'll notice at this point, he's already kind of walked all the way around the DNC. This is the DNC building. You can kind of see this. I'm presuming this is the DNC building, but you can see this big concrete wall on the side. Looks like you've got some metal railings. Looks like a big government building with a little bit of a planter there. The alleged bomber, he's now texting something. He's sort of looking at his phone. He's got his hood on. We have what looks like a kind of an infrared camera. So he's just still hanging out there. Cars are passing by. And that's where it stops. I think it stops. Nope, it's still going. Okay, so let's just wait. He's going to walk off here. There he goes. So now he's picking up, walking to the left side of the screen. So we don't actually see him drop that off, if I don't recall, right? He goes off over into the footage there. And then he's off camera. So then he drops it off, and now he's doing loops back around, goes around the full DNC building, kind of double backs. And so you're noticing, they have a lot of footage that they're not including in this. Obviously, right? This is the scene from the FBI, but we have a turnaround here. How they know he turned around here. They have a turnaround here. How they know he turned around there, right? We got different colors. He does a double back, multiple double back. So they've got cameras all over the place. They're just giving us just a simple smattering. So one of the first things you're always asking, anytime you get discovery from the government, is they're going to tell us this is our whole file. This is everything we have. This is what you got. And you look at it and you realize, oh, that's basically nothing, right? I'm missing this, I'm missing this, I'm missing this. And so obviously this is not meant to be exhaustive. This is just the FBI making a public video so that we have some bases for what happened here. But my point is they've got a ton of surveillance footage. What they're looking at is going to be enough that's going to connect the dots on every one of these turns, right? They're going to see this guy. They're watching everything he's doing. If he picked his nose, I'm sure they saw it, but he was too covered up. They couldn't see anything, right? I mean, the guy was completely covered. He had a hood on. He had a mask on. Presumably, he had glasses on. He had gloves on. It was even hard to gauge the color of his skin. I mean, you really couldn't see anything from any of the videos. So the FBI comes back out. They're giving us some information here. Says that based on the suspect's route, let me change my pen back. Route of travel to the DNC and from the DNC to the RNC, and the manner in which he carries his backpack after placing the bomb at the DNC, FBI believes the suspect had a location in the vicinity of Folger Park from which the person was operating. Reviews of the suspect's behavior and interviews with residents have led the FBI to believe the suspect is not from the area. And that's interesting. And remember, right, this is happening on January 5th. So none of the stuff that happened on January 6th had happened. Nobody was expecting that to happen. According to even Mayor Muriel Bowser, she submitted a document saying, we don't want any help. We have this thing covered. We've dealt with many other protests here. We know what we're doing. Don't send the feds in. We'll handle it. She said that specifically to the Trump administration at the time. So that is very, very interesting. My question would be, if the January 6th riots didn't happen as they happened, would these bombs have gone off? Maybe they didn't go off because that event was happening, right? So one way or the other, we were going to get some sort of chaos and disorder that day. Somebody was going to make it happen. In light of this new information, the FBI is issuing a national call for tips from the American people, saying they've been very, very helpful. If you recognize anything about his glasses, shoes, backpack, any of the items, mannerisms, characteristics, anything, give us a help out. Anything unusual in Folger Park on the evening of January 5th, they need help because they can't find this guy. They're saying that they're extremely grateful. Let's take a look at what they've gone through. FBI has conducted more than 800 interviews, which really isn't that much, over 9 months, collected more than 23,000 video files, assessed more than 300 tips related to this. So those tips have helped us uncover new information, but we need more. We know it is hard to report on your friends or your families, but these bombs were viable devices. They could have detonated, killing actual people. Your tip could be the one that saves lives. The person who placed these bombs wore a face mask, glasses, gray hooded sweatshirt, gloves, blue light gray Nike gear. Suspect used a backpack. $100,000 reward from the FBI. Now, this is where he goes over, and right, so we're going to see here, this is the final part. He's going to take this over to the RNC. The RNC is over here now, up top on this sort of top right, Capitol Hill Club. Let's see what his direction looks like here. So they pick him back up now on 2nd Street. We get a purple line. He's going to do some loop-de-loos again. We saw this image, right? We saw this previously. But again, can't see anything about him. He's totally covered up. There he's going in front of the Capitol Club. Stretching out his arms a little bit before he makes a double back, goes around the building one time, drops it off, and then leaves at 8:18 p.m. So he's there for less than an hour and actually made a transition from one location to another. All right, well, let's see what you have to say about this. This is over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Any thoughts on what's happening here? Any questions about what the FBI is alleging happened? Let's take a look. We have a few questions here. First one from Monster One says, it's been almost a year and they are just now finding video of this bomber. Yeah, it doesn't seem suspicious at all. That's from Monster One. Yeah, it's been 9 months. Over 9 months. And they're now asking for the public's help on this thing. They're out of options. Very interesting. Edon Test says, America's position used to be, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We need to update that to say, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We subsidize them. We give them all sorts of military gear, whatever they need. Humvees, Blackhawks, anything, whatever you need. They've got it. Perry Masonary is here, says full frontal view, but they can't find this person. Don't know how this can be, yet 9/11 was completely figured out. Something's not right here. That's from Perry Masonary. We have a couple other questions. Let's see what we've got. We have Jeremy Matrita says, I have lost all trust in the FBI. If the investigators are incompetent to investigate crimes, they should be replaced. They certainly shouldn't be fishing for help from the untrained public. Yeah, somebody's going to watch that and say, I know somebody who walks like that. It's that jerk. That person might have an unfriendly visit from the FBI. Jeremy, oh, we already read that one. Good to see you, Jeremy. We have another one from the FBI. Says, Rob, the person in the video is not an FBI agent or an informant. LOL. Thanks for reminding me, FBI. You know, somebody like me might have thought something like that, but you corrected me. You're disavowing the fact that you might have had anything to do with any of this, and I believe you for that, right? You would never have a special FBI agent text messaging with an undercover government informant telling them that the plan was to go murder and kidnap a governor. And then when you're a special agent, FBI person sending that text messaging to your confidential informant that the government is basically keeping on their payroll, you also tell them, delete this text. I'm not supposed to be saying this, so make sure it's erased from evidence. FBI would never do that, right? Oh, they did. That was the Governor Whitmer case. Oh, they're liars. Oh, they framed a bunch of people throughout history. It's documented, well documented. But this is totally different, right? The FBI said so. They're on the show. They said so. Had nothing to do with anything. We had Nadler's Bellies here, that big old Billy, says an anonymous source told me Adam Schiff is the bomber. Little Adam Schiff, Democrat from California. Yeah, he's a bombastic fellow, that's for sure. TOS Forever says, amazing. Why wouldn't the gods of Teco trace the bomber's phone and text and connection? It's a good question. I wonder who he was texting. Was he communicating with his FBI handlers? I don't know. Why wouldn't they be able to find that? We know that they were gobbling up all the cell data. That was one of the first subpoenas that went out. They were gobbling all the cell data of everybody there, right? That was one of the first things that was demanded early on in these criminal cases. We have another one from 503 Unlimited said, is that a Unabomber wannabe? Wasn't it Timothy McVeigh that dressed in this type of low-profile getup? From 503 Unlimited. Did Timothy McVeigh do that? That was the Oklahoma City guy. I don't know. But, COVID makes it very convenient to be an undercover bomber, doesn't it? Put the thing on, put the glasses on. Nobody even asks a question. You just go, oh, he's a COVID hysteric. That you could wrap yourself up in a balloon if you wanted to, a bubble, and just probably waltz right into a bank. Probably waltz right into the bank vault. Excuse me, sir, you're not supposed to be in here. I have my mask on. Oh, well, in that case, yeah, go right in there. Stupid. All right, what else? We have Vienticus Prime says, if they got a full frontal view, then maybe they can identify him in the same manner as in the movie Porky's. I don't know if I've ever seen that one. Thunder7 says, FBI know who it is, but just like Hunter's laptop, they're going to sit on it because it incriminates the lunatic left Antifa crowd. Where was Hunter Biden that night? Nobody knows. We have another one from Sergeant Bob says, this is worth the FBI time. Trouble is their corruption and rhetoric the last few years. If you had told me a few years back, I would have no confidence in another. I'm sorry. If you had told me a few years back, I would have no confidence in another law enforcement agency, I would have laughed. Not laughing now. I'm with you on that, Sergeant Bob. Mine not a few years ago. I would say 10 to 12 years ago, right? When I was a young first-year law school student, I thought law enforcement was just, the tops. And I've learned a lot since that time. And a lot has changed since that time. I think that law enforcement and the entire dynamic of policing has changed dramatically. So it doesn't surprise me that we're becoming more and more aligned on that as we're both observing what's happening around us because it's inappropriate. Thanks, Sergeant. We have another one from Monster says, if they can track his 15 laps around the building, why can't they track where he came from or where he went? Great question, Monster One. And I'd be asking the same thing. We have another one here from Kincaid says, methinks Antifa, also the FBI, doesn't have analyzers, LOL, body type, possible age, etc. I mean, just looking at the dude or very large gal has some lower back issues. Perhaps flaming too much online? Yeah, and I was thinking about that too, Kincaid, right? All sorts of body movement analysis. I think remember that scene from True Lies with my once favorite actor, Arnold Schwarzenegger? As they're walking through the security and it's analyzing their gait, how the body walks, right? They can sort of see where your joints are and they can measure the distance between your joints and your torso length. And it's sort of like a fingerprint. Your body's like a fingerprint, right? They can measure the distances between everything and it's unique to you. And so, can they do that here? Probably. But do they have the data to support that? We're going to save that for the next segment when maybe they don't now, but sometime in the scary future they will. Three Girlies is here, says, I watched security cameras nonstop for years. There is not enough of these cameras for them to determine anything from the public. They need to let go of more of these videos. How do they know that he's even a guy? Also, I've noticed they circled the Capitol Club like the DNC building, not the RNC building. I don't believe the FBI can say they targeted the RNC building. Yeah, that's a good point, right? We don't really know. We saw sort of this scene here from the RNC building, and the RNC bomb, as we can see, is, we see the Capitol Hill Club. The RNC bomb is right over here by the Capitol Hill Club, but this is the RNC right here. So why is the bomb over here, not over here? Curious. Yeah, it's a good point. Three Girlies. Let's see what else we have coming in. Next one up is from Not the Russians, which is good. Him wandering around means this was the first time doing something like this. Maybe he's not even local. Was he texting or looking at Google Maps to find the building? Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question because he dropped it off over by the Capitol building, the Capitol Club building, the restaurant, not the RNC building. Monster One says the Unabomber was Ted Kaczynski. He was the hoodie guy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think there's a good Netflix documentary about that. Peely Wally is here, says, hey, Rob, what a story on today's What a story on an epic day in Europe's past when Islamic State carried out attacks across France, killed 137, injured 416 back in 2015. The trial of some of the perpetrators has started today. They blew up the suicide vest outside the Parc de France when France were playing a football game, then went into a concert and executed many, shot and killed many at cafes. The troubles from afar reached UK shores and are no longer troubles from afar. It will only spread in the years to come. May I pay my respects to my French brothers and sisters lost that day. That's from Peely Wally. Man, what a nice comment. I mean, it's not a nice, I mean, it's a great comment. It's not a nice thing. Epic day. And yeah, so I remember those series of attacks. Wasn't there one in Mumbai also? I think around that time. I was in law school. Yeah. And no. I was out. I was practicing. Yeah, I remember those. There was a series of those very violent, very aggressive attacks, volatile attacks, where they went into shopping malls and things like that. And it's amazing that we're now in 2021 and the trials started today. Thank you for sharing that, Peely Wally. Important to pay your respects on those things. We have a bomb position could suggest potential motives. DNC are busy. RNC are fat cats hanging out over by the lounge, somebody said. And so those came in from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see what we have coming in over from YouTube. We have Ben Dover says, make tacos, not war. It's a good mantra just for life in general. We have Hector G says, can you unpack the Texas voting bill? Is it basically going back to pre-pandemic voting procedures? Yeah, I saw that Governor Abbott signed that. I'll take a look at it. I'm not sure that we'll squeeze it into a segment. It kind of depends on what it looks like. But I will take a look at that, yeah, because that might actually be a framework for other states, right? If Texas got it through and this is going to be their line in the sand, other states might be doing something very similar. So that might be worthwhile. Sometimes it's hard for me to squeeze in all the topics into one day because there's so much to talk about. But thank you for the suggestion, Hector G. I will take a look at that. Typically what I like to do is kind of batch a bunch of the same topics together. So, when there's other voting things to talk about, we'll see if we can bundle those up. But thank you for your support. Those all came over from YouTube and watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, we've got one final segment of the day, and let's get into it, shall we? The LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, are now gobbling up social media information from basically everybody. If you have an interaction with them, whether you're guilty of anything or not, and they write your name down on a card because you're a witness, you're somebody who saw something, and they want to record your information, there's a very interesting line on the form that they filled out called an interaction card where they're saying things like, social media profile, things that we found about this person online so that all of that can be documented, so that everything goes back into their database and they can do something with it. Don't really know what it is because why would they tell us? But this is all happening. Starting in LAPD, but probably going to end up in your state, in your backyard any day now. The Guardian is reporting saying revealed LAPD officers are told to collect social media data on every civilian that they stop. An internal police chief memo shows employees were directed to use field interview cards. And these very kind of simple, like 3x5 cards that police use when they're writing down basic information, which would then be reviewed. So the police chief drafted a memo, sent that out. LAPD directed all of their officers to collect social media information, including of those individuals not even arrested or accused of a crime. The police complete these things. They want to record things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts, and other social media accounts, along with other basic biographical information. Internal memo shows that Michael Moore, the police chief, told employees, quote, it was critical to collect the data. Why? Why do we need it, Michael Moore? Why do we need this for? Well, we're going to use it in investigations, arrests, and prosecutions. Warned that supervisors would review the cards to ensure that they were complete. So you have the chief of police now demanding in an internal memo, all officers, if you're going to be talking to anybody and writing their name down on one of these cards, you got to include some important stuff on there. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Your supervisors are going to be looking at your cards and find out that you're not following the rules. Here's what one of the cards looks like. You can see we got names, first and last. We have date of birth. We've got sex. We have gang monikers, AKAs. We have date and time and location, all very standard stuff. The officer who was there, the serial number, social security disclaimer. We have another officer, another division, incident number. Okay, all that's pretty standard. But here in this middle section, we got a big box. It says additional info. pretty simple stuff. Additional persons, booking numbers, a narrative, like I saw the person exiting the store with a box of Cheerios in their hand and they didn't pay for it, right? You write that down. Email. Social media accounts are the new ads. For example, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. All of those need to be documented. And according to the police chief memo, if you don't do it right, you're in trouble with your supervisor. So why is this problematic? Well, surveillance, obviously. In 2015, the department added these. It was a line item that went back on there, similar to an alias or a nickname. Well, it might be beneficial to investigations, right? It's just sort of like, I'm Robert, also have gone by Rob, Robbie, Bob, Bobby, all of them, right? Everything in there. It's just like writing some different things. Oh, he's also Robert Gruler ESQ on YouTube. Oh, he's also got a Clips channel. Oh, he's also got a crypto channel. Oh, right? All of those different things. You might think, oh, that's what's wrong with that? But when social media collection, while it has gone largely unnoticed, some of this has prompted controversy. Last October, prosecutors filed criminal charges against 3 police officers from LAPD, said that they used the cards to falsely label civilians as gang members after stopping them. So then they got recorded as gang members in LAPD databases. Unit also had a history of stopping black drivers at higher rates, and they frequently filled out cards for the black and Latino residents, but not for the other people. Meanwhile, more than half of the civilians stopped by Metro officers are not even arrested or even cited. The department underwent scrutiny for racial profiling, but never acknowledged that they were doing broad-scale social media account collections. And the reason why this might be problematic is because this is going to be going into presumably some sort of technology that's going to be able to interface at scale. That's going to be able to really provide the police department with a ton of valuable data. Guardian warns, when police obtain social media username, it opens the door for them to monitor an individual connections and friends online. Allows for huge expansion of what's called network surveillance. Noting that Facebook and police have used Facebook photos and likes to make dubious or false allegations of criminal gang activity. We have a Stop Spying organization says that there are different law enforcement agencies that are trying to use, quote, predictive policing. So technologies that can rely on this data and then criminalize entire communities of people because they're making all of the connections. Oh, all of these people are friends, and so they all live over here, and so we're just going to criminalize that entire neighborhood. Doesn't matter if you're in the neighborhood and you're actually a part of the criminality, you're in the neighborhood. It says this is like stop and frisk. And this is happening with the clear goal of surveillance, LAPD said. Or he noted, said that sometimes they will pose as undercover groups and undercover people to investigate and infiltrate certain specific groups on the internet. So, there is some concern with this, and I want to introduce you to this company. It's called Media Sonar. We're going to see what this has to do with the LAPD in a minute, but this is a company on the internet. You can go visit their website right now. It says it's web intelligence, and it's investigation at scale. So this is where they're going to be taking all of that data and aggregating it and synthesizing it and doing some analysis. They have new tech at the LAPD that can address the threats before they occur. Remember that movie Minority Report where they did pre-crime? The Brennan Center, the people who got these reports, says that they are interfacing with a company called Media Sonar, the LAPD. In the 2021 budget, they spent $73,000 to purchase the Media Sonar software to, quote, help address a potential threat or an incident before its occurrence. Sounds exactly like pre-crime. Trying to predict something and impute criminality to an individual who may have not done anything wrong in the first place. Sounds like it might be a violation of a bunch of constitutional protections here in the United States, like the presumption of innocence, like due process. All of those things that are pretty damn important. The extent of the LAPD's use of Media Sonar is unclear, but the company's communications with the LAPD have raised questions. In one message, the firm said its services, Media Sonar, quote, can be used to stay on top of drug, gang, and weapon slang keywords and hashtags. So they're going to be monitoring social media stuff. There's concerns that they could, misinterpret slang, misinterpret the proper context in local groups, and then start criminalizing these people. Yeah, because people say things all the time. Never, ever is intended to turn into something violent or illegal. So the LAPD is now interfacing with media sonar, $73,000 a year, which is a pretty small price, actually. You know, they should raise their prices. The government will pay, 10 times that for this technology. Don't tell them I said that. But let's take a look at the platform itself. Okay, so we know that the LAPD is now gathering up everybody's names. They're writing them on these 3x5 cards. The chief of police is scolding the police officers. Hey, you get those social media profiles, otherwise you're in trouble. Your supervisors are checking your homework. And if you don't do a good job with your homework, you're in trouble. So they're doing that. And what happens with all of that data? What happens with all of the social media accounts that go in that card? Well, they have to go somewhere. 73 grand for media sonar. Let's see if maybe they're using it for this data. Here's what the platform looks like. It is a web intelligence and investigations platform that is going to broaden your lens on the digital attack surface. Okay. It's also going to equip your security team with visibility indicators into threats emerging outside your organization from the open and the dark web. Oh, so we've got threat alerts, we've got data augmentation and investigation, visualization, workplace collaboration. All of this data is being gobbled up into this sonar platform. Data augmentation, what else do we have? It will generate profile information for people with one click. You go in there, you just say, I want to investigate that Robert Gruler. You put it into the system, one click. Everything that I've ever done anywhere. Also, probably a lot of people that I connect with on a regular basis. And so if you just would localize that to the LAPD, they're going to be able to do that same thing, right? It's almost like a social media network for criminals that they're just going to be able to just read through. They can also now explore natural language processing. So they're going to take things like usernames, emails, phone numbers, domain names, IP addresses, credit cards, crypto addresses, and beyond. So they're going to be able to create a profile and then just pull all that data right out of you, because now they're connecting a real world person with online personas. All of that gets fed back into this media sonar, and they just go hog wild with it. Their crawlers go and they connect all the dots all throughout the internet. They're going to build and track your digital investigative path by connecting entities and relationships across IP addresses, domains, emails, usernames, and organizations. So for example, even if you're somebody, you say, oh, I'm on Twitter, and I have 3 different profiles. I've got one for, I'm not saying this is me, but I've got one that is a public profile, and I'm like Mitt Romney. I also have Pierre Delecto, right, which is his pseudonym Twitter profile, and he kind of got busted posting something from his pseudo-anonymous profile when he wouldn't have ever said that from his main profile. Mitt Romney did. So this happens all the time, right? People have pseudo-anonymous accounts. I have no problems with that at all. But what happens here is once they get one, they can connect it to the IP address. And your IP address, if you're on your home network or you're in your home and you're connecting to Twitter and you change your Twitter account from public profile to pseudo-anonymous profile, well, you're still on the same network. You're still using the same IP address. And so if this organization can capture that, they can follow you around your digital footprint everywhere you go and connect you to everything. And that's in the hands of the LAPD now. That's great. They can also visualize all this data. So if they want to connect the dots between the actors and the data, then they can get a bird's eye view of a threat and the ability to deep dive, discover new areas so they can connect all the people. Remember in Minority Report when they were putting all the stuff in the screen and connecting all the dots together? Yeah, same thing. They could say, oh, Rob and these people and everybody else in this nice little, nice GUI interface. So that sounds fun. Access to social insight reports give you high-level view of public sentiment. We can meet compliance and security requirements. We've got logs of user and case activity. They can identify and detect threats. They have unlimited access to social, open, and dark web sources alongside key closed intelligence databases. Oh, so they're not just scraping public data, right? They're not just a bunch of Google bots crawling around the internet trying to gobble up publicly accessible information. They're also getting plugged in to closed intelligence databases. They have the advanced search capability. They got quick filters, content extraction, historical data access. So if you put somebody in there, right, it can just probably archive, extract literally everything that you do, goes right into media sonar, perfectly organized for the LAPD. They can access all dark web intelligence. You don't need to use multiple tools. Very, very beautiful glass user interface, threat API, automated web threat discovery, different technology to investigate it all. Unlimited access to the web coverage, follows people's media footprint around. Pathfinder lets you explore connections between actors, domains, usernames, other digital entities, anything a person's ever posted. Different alerts so you can just get, Robert posted something else on Twitter. Get an alert so that the threat model engine can determine whether that group, that organization is really a threat. Different reports, and of course you can build teams so that your spying LAPD officers can form little cohorts, and they can spy on each other together. So that is what's happening out of the LAPD, one of the biggest law enforcement agencies in the country. They are now making connections between people who are totally innocent, not even suspected of any wrongdoing, and gobbling up that social media information. Why? Is it so that they can put it into their $73,000 a year software called Media Sonar? Probably. What do you have to say about this? Let's take a look over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and see what we've got queued up here. We have Mark Zuckerberg says, don't use your real name on social media, ever. That's from Mark. Pretty good advice from Mark. We have Thunder7 says, this is so scary beyond belief, not only because of privacy concerns, but anyone can put an account in your name or even hack into your accounts. What if a hacker or identity thief pretends you were part of a militia or a white supremacist? Can the public refuse to give any social media info, whether you have an account or not? Isn't it a First Amendment issue? Your legal opinion, please and thank you. So, it's a good question. This is going to be something that I think you might see some litigation over that, actually, right? You have an obligation to identify yourself to the police. You can't sort of, be out there in the public and not identify yourself. Many people will say that all the time. No, I'm not going to identify myself. You have to, right? They'll charge you with a crime, at least in Arizona. I don't know how it is in all 50 states, but in Arizona, if you don't give them your identification, that is illegal, right? They have a right to at least know who you are. So you have to communicate that. The extent of that, right, and what courts will so let's say, for example, hypothetically, it's going to be hard to give you a one-size-fits-all scenario here because I don't know, but if a police officer in LA, let's go through a hypothetical here. If a police officer in LA goes up to you and you're on the side of the road, and let's say they have a similar law to Arizona where you have to identify yourself and provide ID, and you do that, and an officer says, okay, great, I got your name, I got all this stuff, and an officer says, I also got to ask you about your social media profiles. Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Okay, what's your username there? And you say, well, I'm not going to give you that. And he says, well, I need that. That's part of the law. I don't know whether it is or not, but presumably it's not going to say anything in LAPD about you have to provide your social media information to the law. But providing ID is a different conversation. And so if you are now refusing to provide that information to the officer, the question comes up to the officer at that point. Does the officer decide that they're going to charge you with a crime for that or not, right? They have some discretion to do that. This person's not providing me information. And I think that I've been ordered to do this. My supervisor's breathing down my neck. The chief of police just sent out a company-wide memo, a department-wide memo that we have to do this. And now I'm asking you for your information and you're not giving it to me. And I need it. The law says I can get it. You're not giving it to me. So I'm going to arrest you and charge you with a crime for that. Yeah, that could be a problem, right? My response in Arizona would be, you don't need to provide any of that, right? All of the information that you need is right on your ID card. It's name, address, date of birth. There are 5 things that you need in Arizona that make it sufficient ID. And my argument back would be, well, that is what the law says is proper identification. We provided you proper identification within the confines of the law. Social media is not included on that. That might be the technical legal answer. That might be the lawyer answer. But you might also get a cop that just says, well, it's information that I need. You're not giving it to me. Therefore, you are under arrest. If that happens, what happens to that case? If somebody files a lawsuit against the LAPD for enforcing that, what would a judge say about that? So there's a lot of issues. I could spiral off gaming out all the different hypotheticals there, but it is interesting. Good question. We'll see where it goes. TOS says, might we see more of police investigating family, future brides like you have covered before? Yeah. Yes. probably, you're seeing very troubling language from a lot of people out there. Jimmy Kimmel was on TV yesterday talking about, COVID, saying, I saw a tweet from him on Twitter talking about COVID and about people who are unvaccinated should basically just be left to rot and wheeze and die. I'm thinking that is really a strange thing for a national host to be saying on TV. The inhumanity to other people at the insistence of the government is starting to get a little bit concerning. I think so. People are just disposable. They're just garbage. And so if your loved one is doing something that is in violation of the Biden administration, if they're not wearing a mask, if they're lying about their vaccine status or something like that, yeah, you better report them to the government. That's how this is going. And you're seeing a lot of people going, yeah, good for you. The audience was clapping there. Yeah, let those unvaccinated people just wheeze to death and just, die in their own misery because they're unvaccinated. And you're going, it's a little bit strange for a big high profile host to be sort of wishing death on a large portion of the country. Strange stuff. Mustang Jeff says, gee, sounds like a Gestapo at its worst. It's scary. Yeah, it's coming all over the place. Sergeant Bob says, we used to call these field interrogation cards. Over many years, they've been useful in investigations. The Facebook, etc. info as in the public domain could also be useful at some point. Really, the general public are ignorant of the way the dots can be connected. In my experience, homicides have been solved or at least investigations supplemented by cell phone tower tracking based upon a warrant. So within legal limits, I'm not entirely opposed to gathering information. This is indeed unexplored territory in the technology age, which I am sure the courts will eventually weigh in upon. As a retired dinosaur, I look forward to more info and discussion on this. P.S. One reason I do not use Facebook. That's from Sergeant Bob. Yeah, it is an interesting thing, right? And I agree with you, Bob. I think that even legally, that people who are going to be making a right to privacy arguments about this, like, oh, maybe the LAPD shouldn't be using supercomputers to connect all the dots together. I think the courts might just say, hey, look, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy to any of that stuff. If you're posting it on the internet, it's fair game. If cops want to use supercomputers and quantum cloud computing to identify the DNA that you left behind 37 years ago when you're Judge Kavanaugh, they're free to do that as long as there's no reasonable expectation of privacy there. And I think it is going to be a ripe area for the law, right? We're going to see a lot of this. We're going to have to talk about digital personhood and digital rights at some point. I tried to do that a year ago, but I think at some point we're going to be having these conversations because some people's online persona is going to be more robust than their offline persona. Many people are already there, right? Thank you for chiming in on that, Sergeant. We've got Jeremy says, Rob, the picture is legitimate. It came from Maxar Technologies, which is a commercial satellite company. Speaking of the social media profiling, I got Daniel Littman. He tweeted the photo. The fact that Twitter has made the photo unavailable validates the validity of the satellite image. Thanks, Twiddler. That's from Jeremy. That was on the last segment asking about the stranded Americans on board the airplanes. Apparently, looks like it's a legit photo. 503 Unlimited says, seems like we are seeing the mask slip on the horrible coming technocracy. Is there an army of red-blooded, constitutional-loving American lawyers to push an ungodly amount of paperwork at the states and the feds? Isn't massive amounts of partially useless paperwork how things get done? How do we flood the system until we finally go back to the right and reverse some of these legal games? I want mandatory guns, not vaccines. Mandatory night vision, not masks, unless gas is present. Sorry for the rant. That's from 503 Unlimited. Love the rants, 503. Appreciate you chiming in on that. I think that the idea that you bury them in paperwork is probably not going to be sufficient here. I do think it's important, I do think it's important for people to exercise their rights. I certainly don't want to encourage frivolous lawsuits and things like that. But if every single defendant in America who was charged with a crime said, yeah, you know what? I do want my day in court. I think I'll go to trial. The whole system would be jammed. The government would have no option but to give good plea deals. People just need to exercise their rights. I have a right to trial. Yeah, I'm just going to go to trial. Yeah, but you did it. We have the evidence and all. Yeah, I know, but I'm going to go to trial. You have to prove it. And if everybody did that, or even 10% more people did that, the whole system would have to respond. And what that means is a number of different things, but it is an interesting conversation. We have TOS Forever says, next criminals, 6-year-olds playing Grand Theft Auto. So what's new? All the conservatives chased off of social media? Well, you're going to see different platforms. You're going to see a lot of pseudo-anonymous actors. You're going to see people who, I'm already seeing that in the crypto space. Most people in the crypto space are sort of avatars, right? They exist online because they don't want people to know how much money they have, and they don't want to be connected to anything. And maybe that's how things go, right? We have avatars and we disconnect from people. We're already going that direction. Dark days to come, from an anonymous commenter, says less officers on the ground, more centralized data collection for those few left. You know, the ones that have been programmed just right. Additionally, not to be a downer, but the tech and mass collection is already underway. I've lived in some dangerous places, and in truth, I did not really mind a seasoned cop stopping me or others. Like it or not, gut feelings have saved lives. This is far too hands-free, easily manipulated from on high. Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, it is already underway, right? We've known this has been going on for a long time. Edward Snowden told us this. Julian Assange told us this. Our own government bureaucrats have told us this. We know that Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of these people know everything about you, right? They already have this data. Now, law enforcement is. There's always been a little bit of a divide there, at least in fiction, that these two sides, you know, private business and government entities were not too close together. The reason why that is so problematic is because you can just see what type of monopoly on power they have if in those situations. So the idea that there was a division between the two was a little bit comforting to people, and it showed that the chief monopolists on power, the only people who can use of force, the government, they were at least separated from all of your personal data to some degree. Now, it's not the case. Now they're going to go get it one way or the other. The LAPD is doing it hand over fist right now and have been doing it for some time. Vientikis says, I don't see why the LAPD needs to do this. Isn't the USPS doing this stuff already? Also, Proton Mail has decided they're going to hand over IP addresses, apparently. You're kidding me, really? Personally, I always figured them for a honeypot. Also, Yahoo email lets me know that they're reading my emails by informing me of all the deals I could be clicking on in my mailbox. There's a service I don't remember clicking yes to. Yeah, everything is just being gobbled up. Not much you can do about that. Peely says, new tech means crossing new boundaries, which will become more annoying in the years to come. Not much will be private in years to come. Life in 2025 will be a terrible mess. Who can save us? Peely Wally, the solution is we've got to save ourselves. We've got to become sovereign individuals. We have to learn how to manage our own lives, separate and apart from the government in many situations, which is okay. We're already doing that. Most of us are already living that way, right? The federal government has this gigantic facade like they are the stewards of our lives. Like everything is orderly because Joe Biden is running things. I don't believe that for a second. I think the government's largely incompetent. As they become less effective, we're going to see them continue to grasp for power and claw for control. We're already seeing that, right, with this sort of technocracy state that we have that's sort of merging with the medical apparatus. It's a really kind of disgusting trend that we're seeing in the United States, but it's because the nation state is crumbling apart. Their legitimacy is failing, and they're recognizing that people are starting to see them as failures. And so they're going to do what they can to keep people plugged into the system while many people are bailing out and looking for alternatives, which that is the answer, right? Nobody's going to come save us. Trump's not going to save us. Ron DeSantis is not going to save America, because the nation state is an old model. They've gotten too top heavy. They've promised too many people two things for too long. They've taxed the productive people. They have exploited the people who really make things happen. And those people are going to bail out. They're not going to continue to play ball. And you're seeing this happen all over the place. The Google guys are building bunkers in New Zealand and in other places because they see the writing on the walls. So it's about redundancy. It's about building parallel systems. It's about insulating yourself to some degree from the forthcoming whirlwind. We have Monster One says, I've never agreed with the position that the private companies can violate people's rights. Constitutional rights should be protected by everyone, regardless if it's the FBI spying or some tech company. Then my private business argument is one of the biggest mistakes the Republicans ever made. I agreed with that, right? I said, how can you just say that? We've already dealt with this issue. Remember when we used to have restaurants that said white people over there, black people over there? Okay, we said that's not appropriate. We have civil rights in this country. You can't do that. You, private business, are not allowed to say drinking fountains over here for blacks, drinking fountains over here for whites. That's not appropriate. We've already done that. So for people, even the Republicans, to come out and say, well, private businesses can do whatever they want. Can they discriminate against black people? No, because as a country, we've decided certain rights are inalienable, right? And we didn't get that issue right correctly during the founding of the Constitution. That was added after the fact, rightfully so. But the concept of free speech was pretty well ensconced in there in the First Amendment. Hard to miss that one. All right, we have a couple more. ExpressVPN can protect your browsing data from your ISP, third parties, and even your mom. That's ExpressVPN. Now, I don't actually use. They don't sponsor this show, of course. It'd be nice if they did. But I don't actually use them. I use NordVPN, and they don't sponsor this show either. Would be nice if they did, though. Gee, free promos for VPN companies. Kincaid says, I do not have faith that regulatory agencies will do their job, nor do I think transparency will be allowed. That's from Kincaid. I agree with you on that. I think you're spot on, Kincaid. We have another one that's loading responses. Look at that. Hello, Google. Come on. All right, there it is. We have another one. John Halgren, not Josh, says directly from their site. This is creepier and scarier than simply spying on individuals. Says, quote, in the era of fake news, the pandemic took the world by surprise. These people are claiming to be a path of the truth for law enforcement. Read the government. That's from John Halgren. Yeah, right. It's we are the purveyors of truth. We have all the answers. Come to us and we'll give you them. We have another one from Sergeant Bob says, I'm not going to answer those questions. That's from our law enforcement interaction training where we went through the 3 rules, the 1, 2, 3 rule for dealing with law enforcement. Sir, have you had anything to drink tonight? Rule number 1. I'm not going to answer those questions. Nice try, officer. I took my training over at robertgruler.com/gumroad. I know how to handle this. We have Not Nadarb says, so this with LA plus the social media companies working with the government in DC, how can it possibly be argued that these companies are private companies? Judges knowingly being corrupt, I guess. Yeah, it's because they're outsourcing all of those things. They are actually private companies. At some point, you can do an analysis as sort of whether these third parties are acting as extensions of the government through some of the agency, indicia, whether the government is exercising some sort of control, whether they're actually autonomous. There are different ways to legally analyze whether somebody is an extension of somebody. It's like, hey, Rob, you're not allowed to have contact with your ex because you got charged with domestic violence, and we've decided that that's not appropriate. And I say, yeah, no problem, Judge. I'm not going to talk to her. She's nuts anyways. But then I have my best friend start harassing the hell out of her, right? I'm texting my best friend, and he's blowing her up. And that's not appropriate. That's kind of what's happening here. Government is saying, oh, no, we can't discriminate. But Facebook can. Facebook can censor all the conservatives in the world if they want to. They're private companies. Not appropriate. Kincaid says, in relation to security concerns, I would guess eventually access points will use extensible technologies like fingerprints and iris scans. While that would reduce personal risk, all that data will be up for grabs. Thoughts, good sir? Yeah, I think, I think you'll probably see more and more of that, right? The Vax Pass will be something that is, slow rollout to interface sort of current lifestyle with the idea that you're using something that's sort of closely related to biodata to validate your existence in society. You want to go into the restaurant, you got to show us the Vax Pass. Right now it's on a Key to NYC app somewhere, but eventually, if you want to make sure that people aren't fraudulently skirting the vaccine rules, we know that people are making fake vaccine cards, and they've got to put a stop to that. So how do you do that? Well, you make sure it's directly connected to a person. Biometric data is already in your phones. Every single phone has a face scanner and a fingerprint scanner, most of them. And so you just start to slowly integrate that. Now, everywhere you go, your thumbprint is your checkout card. Your iris is your checkout card. I think it's probably already on the agenda. Monster One says, I can see how they can legally compel people to give up social media. It's a Fifth Amendment violation. You have the right to remain silent. I can't see how they can legally compel people. Yeah, so the conversation would be about whether they can lump that into the you have to provide identification bucket. If they can say that is part of ID and they can make that argument, then you'd have to be compelled to give that to them, because your right to remain silent doesn't extend to identifying yourself in most situations. Not all. There's always it depends in the law. We know that. I'm Not Gases here says, I got to say stuff like this really gives me hope to see a cyberpunk dystopia I've been dreaming about since watching Blade Runner. Yeah, it might be kind of fun. Some of those like rainy, dark, gloomy alleyways with all the neon lighting and everybody's sort of angry and depressed. Watch it, everywhere you go. Yeah, it might be kind of fun. I think I do okay. I think I survive. We have another one from Jeremy says, this is a great topic. Many of what we do online is considered open source intelligence if the right security precautions aren't taken. Even if we use a different account for every site we visit, we still tend to have a unique digital footprint without realizing it. Yeah, and so I've read a lot about this, right? You have all these different browser extensions that you have installed. You have location, you have browser, you have user agents, you have software. All these different things are all like little bit different on every computer. And so even browser that is connected to you, ideally or theoretically can be tracked. There are many companies and governments and bad actors out there that are constantly grabbing breadcrumbs we leave behind. With enough time and the use of cross-referencing, they can still piece the puzzle together and figure out who you are. Sounds scary, but as long as you stay away from breaking any laws, you really don't have much to worry about. It's certainly too late to try and stuff that cat back in the bag. Yeah, I'm not worried about not breaking any laws. The problem is for the people that don't break any laws and somebody says that they did. That's the big problem. But it's a great point, Jeremy, and I appreciate it. Robute is here, says, not happy with the LAPD spying, but be paranoid regarding social media. Don't tell them your social media or say you don't have any. First, use a good VPN, no personal details paid through crypto. Secondly, block trackers in JavaScript. I want them to try to track people when they used Monero. That's from Robute. A few others. John Halgren says, for what it's worth, I use my real name to keep myself honest. Too easy to troll with a fake name. Yeah, I kind of made that decision a long time ago, John. There are some benefits to using your real name. Okay, Naval talks about this in his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Amazing book. He didn't actually write it. Somebody wrote it for him, but he's a brilliant guy. At Naval, Naval on Twitter. And he says, if you're willing to put your name behind your speech, there's some power there, right? People respect that. And so, I think that there's a benefit to putting your words behind your name. It carries a little bit more gravitas than just some guy, right, who's out there just opining about some things. So I think it's a good thing. Now, at the same time, right, there are a lot of very important benefits to staying pseudo-anonymous, right? I think that pseudo-anonymity is a very, very important thing to consider as a security feature. I am also in the position where I happen to be a lawyer. I happen to have a criminal defense law firm. I'm pretty much not reliant on any external source of funding, and so I'm not beholden to sponsors or anything like that. It's my company. If we can't continue to generate business, if I do things that are improper, if I do things that are wrong, and people, enough people call us out about it, and I lose my license or something like that, right? That's sort of I think my incentives are aligned with doing good. I want to do well. I want to help people. I want to grow a company. I want to provide for the people that we help. I want to make sure that our employees have a good team. We have an amazing team, but have good, fulfilling, wholesome lives. And so we do a lot to try to to try to keep things positive. And I think I lost my train of thought on that. Who was I talking about? John. Yeah, my real name. Yeah, my real name. So the real name conversation, right? The point here being is that I have a little bit more armor than some other people do, right? I've got a lot of protection there. There are a lot of people that don't have that. A lot of people don't have those same variables that insulate them a little bit. If you get online and you say something and your boss doesn't like it and you lose your job, that's a different consequence. And so staying pseudo-anonymous at that point is, I think, very important. And I'll tell you what, I said a lot of things when I was younger that I would regret saying now, a lot of things, and I might have said those publicly when I was a young man, right, on the internet. And so some of that can be troublesome, which is why a pseudonym may be beneficial. And you can extrapolate this however way you want to go. There's another guy called Balaji Srinivasan, also brilliant, also on Twitter at Balaji S. And he talks about everybody's going to be pseudo-anonymous in the future, because what you're going to have are going to have deadly drones that if somebody doesn't like your politics, they just go drone your ass. And so he's saying that everybody's going to have avatars, and we're all going to sort of work behind pseudo-anonymous interfaces because everything's going to be digitized. So, real names may not have much benefit in the future. A lot of interesting things, a lot of conversations taking place around technology. We'll see where it goes. Not Nadarb says, you think the LAPD is bad? The Pentagon has a 60,000 man undercover online army that really hasn't been approved or made an official branch. Check it out. It's over from Newsweek. I'll take a look at that one here as soon as we wrap up the show, Nadarb. Let's see what else we've got. Former LEO says, that's why I would like to see a jury trial for all the J6 defendants. Put up or shut up. Yeah, unfortunately that won't happen. That would be very interesting. He also says no time waived for trial. That's from former LEO, which meaning that we're going to trial. No more delays. We're just going to have a trial right now. So let's get to it. Bumma Lickett says, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm glad the police have an extra tool to look at individual citizens for further assessment. Whether we like it or not, our present time is different now. It changed. I'm glad the law enforcement keeps up with modern technology in policing, because bad people from our time and bad people in the present time are still bad, just criminally different. At least the police in our community is keeping up. Maybe this time people can be more careful with the nasty things they post and be more polite with a winky face. That's from Bumma Lickett. That's a different perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I think a lot of people would feel safer because they're monitoring people's social media posts. Truman HW says, I wasn't going to chime in today, but look, we can't consume free services and then complain that companies find a way to monetize and that it exceeds our imagination. Let's be consistent before we complain. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Truman, right? And look, Facebook and Google and all these places, we're all agreeing to the terms and services. No question about that. And, the question I think is, do you take some of the same fundamental underlying civil liberties that we would take outside of the digital world, and do we apply those to the digital world? Which I think is a very reasonable thing to do. Free speech, the right to privacy, unlawful searches and seizures, the right to counsel. I put together a digital bill of rights. I think that it should just be applied on the digital platform, because many people are living in the digital world now, not really in the real world. Truman says, regarding the LAPD interrogatories, as far as answering police questions, sure, once the legislature passes that as a law, but how can we be punished for non-compliance with conduct that isn't classified as legally obligatory? Well, so that's an easy answer. It's because police or prosecutors or judges make it legally obligatory, right? So for example, let's say you're arrested for a DUI and your blood results come back and they're 0 zeros. Happens all the time. People get arrested for DUI, put in handcuffs, jabbed in the arm, had blood drawn, and their blood results are under the limit or zeros. I've had cases where there's zeros. The person had nothing in their blood and they got arrested. So how was that a thing, right? How does that happen? The cop was wrong. Prosecutors were wrong. Judges were wrong. They were all wrong in the entire process. So it was legally erroneous, but it's still obligatory because the cop has the gun and the badge, and they're allowed to do that. We have another one, says, no name here, says, kind of off topic but related. Did anyone hear Jen Psaki say Biden is coming up with 6 steps to keep us safe from COVID? Yeah, he's speaking on it tomorrow. Said standards would affect your standard of living if unvaccinated. Great. I also heard Arizona considers mandates unconstitutional. Can the long arm of Biden reach us in each state? So tired of Biden, not even 1 year in office. He's worse than Obama. So the long arm of the state, of the federal government can reach in certain contexts. But the way that we typically frame this is that they use the power of the purse in order to get states to do certain things. That we've seen the federal government here through the Biden administration. He's using the Department of Education to go after the schools, using CDC to go after your property rights, using the DOJ to go after election laws, all sorts of different things. The feds are sticking their noses in everybody's business. So they're going to continue to do that. One of the ways they do that is with money. The individual taxpayers throughout the states have to pay taxes. The federal government's going to collect that up either way, whether you take the money back or not. You still got to pay in to the coffers, but whether you get that back is a different story, and the states want that back. So they typically will acquiesce to the demands of the feds. Peely Wally says, from the last segment, I just wanted to say thanks for the sensitive talks around the madness back in 2015. Young people, couples, grandparents, all were lost that day in France. It was a needless thing. I warned against such incoming attacks, but the life of overseas people takes over your own people in times when the governments don't think much about the consequences. Yeah, they are thinking about the consequences, but it's about the consequences they want. It's not about the consequences that you want. It's not about improving your life as a citizen. They don't give a crap about you as a citizen. What do they have to serve you for, right? At some point, we should be asking ourselves, is our government supposed to be improving our lives or not? Or making it better? Do we want that out of our government? Do we just have an obligation to pay taxes all day indefinitely for what, garbage? For failed wars? For failed leadership? For failed protection of our fundamental rights? We just got to keep paying that? Yeah. They don't care. They care about their own ends. If grandma dies from COVID, they don't care. They throw people in nursing homes. They don't care about dead soldiers. Joe Biden checks his watch as the bodies are rolling out of airplanes. Do you think that the people in France, in the EU, or any of these other places care about the citizens? No, they don't care. They're just bringing in other people because there are demographic problems. It enables them to gobble up more power. They have to provide more resources. It's more voters for many people. It's all demographics. It's all money. It's not about lives or competent government. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more people alive and more competent government. 503 Unlimited says they are going to create a massive mesh network with each mainstream provider's phone, and each phone act like a node. The only vector they can't overcome is disconnecting. I've been doing software development for a while now. Once I retire, I'm moving as far away from tech as possible. You're always connected if you have the internet. That's from 503 Unlimited. Yeah, so basically, they're talking about this. They're talking about your devices opening up some bandwidth on your own home network to allow the devices to communicate with other devices. So how would this work? Let's say you have an Amazon device in your home and you are close to your neighbors and you both have these devices and they're on a network. What Amazon would do, it would connect to your home network and it would carve out a little bit of that bandwidth that would make it available for other Amazon communications outside your home network. Amazon's opening your home network to allow Amazon stuff to go through your home network using your internet, creating this big mesh network that connects all of their devices throughout basically the entire country, right? And they're creating this little pipeline of data. And they're saying it's going to improve this, that, and the other, but we'll see. Monster One says, people need to stop posting their crimes online. Maybe after you rob the bank, don't pose with the money. Maybe don't post Facebook Live doing drive-bys. It's good advice. Definitely don't post your criminal activity on your Facebook. That's from a criminal defense lawyer. Okay, don't do it. Will Smith says, watch my movie, Enemy of the State. If you give an inch, they take a yard. That was a long time ago. And I think a more current, great movie, by the way. I love that movie. Gene Hackman, I think, was the other guy in that one, right? Yeah. The other interesting, I think, parallel here is the movie, the TV show Westworld, when they have that super digital AI computer that's sort of micromanaging everybody's lives. I think that's kind of what this is resembling. And Hollywood, they're pretty good about prognosticating what's coming next. We saw what happened on the Capitol building. We saw a lot of that same imagery in a lot of Olympus Has Fallen and the White House Down and all those different movies. Very interesting. Vientika says, in reference to data collection in general, remember, you can salt your own data. That's interesting too. Yeah, so you can kind of poison your own data so it can't be deciphered. Kincaid says, so do you think that removing technology consideration from constitutional rights would be useful? That is to say, use radiational text interpretation to follow reasonable direct relations. So if you cannot name all the parties seeing you, intel, then there should be no access or collation. I'm not sure what you're asking there, Kincaid. I think if I could extrapolate that, I think that you're asking about removing technology consideration from constitutional rights. So in other words, I think you're talking about expanding and extending the constitutional rights into the technology space. So we're sort of drag those out of the physical world, the world of atoms, and we bring them into the world of bits, online and digital, which I like. I like that idea a lot. The Real Villain says the internet is not real, which I know. I know that I've been talking to myself here for months now, but I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. Sergeant Bob says, great show. Comments from the tribe. Thank you again for your work. That's from Sergeant Bob. Thank you, Sergeant Bob. I appreciate it. It was a good one, largely because you're here and contributing. Ghost Gunner says, this reminds me of Mark Bola, a UK soccer player, charged for a tweet he made 9 years ago when he was 14. Ugh, that's insane. Oh, that's insane. We have Ghost Gunner says, apparently FA stands for Football Association, so my comment isn't exactly the same when it comes to Mark Bola, but it's well within the realm of possibilities. How long until people can use the word gay as a derogatory term and their teens get charged? Times have certainly changed since I was a kid. I'm sure I said some pretty stupid things in the past. People get doxxed all the time for something they said in the past. That's from Ghost Gunner. Yeah, I know it. It comes out all the time. Didn't Kevin Hart lose the ability to even go get the Oscars or something like that because he made some tweets? I mean, people are insane. The government is here, says, if you have done nothing wrong, give us your details. We just want to check. You got nothing to hide, right? Do you have something to hide? No? Then just give us your details. It's a great point. Yeah, I mean, the government cares about you. They just want to make sure, just like Antony Blinken said, the Taliban, they just want to check your papers to make sure you're not on the wrong plane. Oh, sweetheart, you're not supposed to be going to Qatar. You're supposed to be going to the United States. You're on the wrong plane, dear. Stewardess, flight attendant, please go escort this young lady off the airplane. Is that what's happening, or is it something different? No, the government is useless, including the Taliban. Let's see what else we have over from YouTube. We had several very, very nice super chats. That's from Look2G. Wow, very, very generous. 2 of those, no questions, just pure support, and I really do appreciate that. And we have Charlie Pruitt with another one. No questions, just showing some love for the show, which I really appreciate. Beth Coddington says, hello, Robert. Don't give up on the song. I had company and went to a retirement party today, but tomorrow is the big day. Be looking for it. I think Beth Coddington's going to sing me a happy birthday. Is that what it was? Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. She's going to sing me a happy birthday song. We sang Beth a happy birthday. Couple of Virgos in the house. That was last week, celebrating, having a lot of fun. Another super chat from Charlie Pruitt and another one from Ada Olivia, also all supporting the show. And I really do appreciate all those. Not even any questions, just support for the show, which is extremely appreciated. You know, I tell this a lot, but as soon as I get off the show, YouTube demonetizes this video, the whole thing. It's demonetized. So that means that anybody who watches it, it doesn't generate any revenue. So what I do is I click, come on, YouTube, we didn't do anything wrong in that, so can you remonetize it for us? And then they say, sure, we'll do that. They do it about 3 or 4 o'clock the next day. So like I'll probably see it in my email anytime now. And nobody watches it because there's the next show coming on. So it's very frustrating, but it's YouTube. It's the whole experience is often frustrating. But my point here, folks, it's not about that. It's about spending time with you, and I appreciate the support. I'm just trying to communicate how appreciative I am because YouTube tends to jerk us around here a little bit. But my friends, that is it. Lots of tremendous support, both from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and from YouTube, and I'm really grateful for all of you. If you want to be a part of the show, and you can join us at our locals community. Want to welcome Me Loves Dogs, who signed up this week. Last week we had Mystery of Life, West Pole, Sir Kexalot, Teresa Simone, Dave 2, Avalon Acres, Timbo, and Don M. all joined up last week. And so I'll update this slide tomorrow. But if you want to be a part of the community, I'd invite you to join us Saturday, October 2nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our monthly locals meetup via Zoom. And I'm also... Folks, I also set up a separate camera in my work office where I'm going to be able to hopefully start doing some more locals content, just locals exclusive content, because I have a camera in there and I can sort of do some a little bit more behind the scenes, less formal shows where we can just have conversations. And so I almost had time to do that today, almost. But I didn't. But I'm closer. I'm getting closer every day. So I'm freeing up a lot of my schedule so that I can continue to spend more time doing a lot of this stuff here with you, because it is a lot of fun. And I think we're doing some good in the world. And I'm grateful for your time here with us. And so that, my friends, is it for the day. I want to thank you once again for being a part of the show. We are going to be back here, same time, same place tomorrow to do it all again. And I want you to be here with us. It's at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else, thank you so much for being here today. Have a tremendous evening. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.